freak out.
She just started recording. Now it's only 3.5.
Thanks.
So that same
Great.
three dots. Or just like, yeah.
There, okay. Perfect. Okay, well, we will get started here. I'm gonna share my screen and get the PowerPoint up. And there we go. So we'll go around first and do our introductions like we do. As always, we've got a new face here on the SRF side, so it'll be helpful for Mitch as well. But then we wanted to jump in and do a little update on engagement, about where we're headed, what's kind of going on. And then talk a little bit about where we're at with the key themes and goals. And then really spend some time on kind of a land use planning discussion. We had a really good conversation with staff here this afternoon. And so looking to, that's kind of a big piece for us in this. I think it's the reason why we do a comprehensive plan, right? But it's kind of that foundational step for us to get into the other pieces, and then just kind of update the next steps as we normally do. So starting with our introductions, our two members online received an image via email a little bit ago, but for the rest of you, gave you guys two images that you could pull from. Now we're talking land use and development. So we pulled these examples from goodness knows where, they might not even be in the US, but want you to look at, you can choose both of them or just one of them. And do you think that this is development that could have a home in River Falls? And if so, where could it be located? Or is this something that doesn't belong?
Just the picture?
Just a
We
picture?
don't know what the businesses are?
No,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, the businesses, I mean, they go in our, I would assume they go in our business parks.
okay. Well, we'll wait till we get to you then, because so I've got them in the PowerPoint.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. It's good. You're thinking ahead.
I
But
never
that,
thought that.
yeah, but that way Chris and Patricia can see the graphic that you've got going on. So maybe first to start and let you guys noodle on a little bit more, I'll let Mitch introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Mitch Browse. I've been with SRF for 3.5 months now. I worked for about 7 years prior to that for a couple of counties, one in Iowa and one in the state of Washington. And so for the last few months, I've been working with staff. I've gotten to know staff here at River Falls, and I'm kind of excited to keep working with you all and get to know you all.
So as we go through, I think, well, if you could, we'll go through the pictures, if you could just say your name so Mitch can get to know you a little bit, but we'll go through kind of the pictures here and just chat from that perspective. So Mayor, I think you have this one.
Oh, I just said they both could go in our business park.
Yeah.
A STEM building now at the university. I like that one.
Yeah, but we're not putting buildings on the university land. They could, yeah, hey, that's true.
The water.
What's up with those random columns though? That's kind of, that's atrocious. I mean, the building's fine, but those columns are just ridiculous.
And the state would never fund those.
I think that one was yours too, right?
I just said they could both go in business parks. They're both nice looking buildings.
Oh, that one's mine. I'm Diane O'Dean, I'm on city council. And no way. All that wasted space, no side, well, no, they do have sidewalks, so that's good, but that is just very non-dense, high carbon footprint township stuff. And yes, I think this could go in River Falls. Those look like great little starter homes. I could see those either, as part of, redevelopment of kind of like older city areas, or even, something like that put in a new development. They're kind of timeless. And actually there's some like right off of Cemetery Road that are kind of a lot like that in that development.
Awesome.
This is me, Rebecca. I'm on the planning commission. I'm not super fond of this. I could see it for, it's attractive looking, not specific to business, but, let's say in the corporate areas. And the second image,
Oh,
yeah,
that might be out of order here.
it's okay.
Let me-
Yeah, I think this is great. I think any of our housing developments would support something like this.
We gave this one to you guys. This one? Yeah.
Amy Peterson, Community Development Director.
Emily Shively, City Planner.
Do we agree that
Yeah.
this could go right to falls?
It is, isn't it?
No, it really looks like.
It really is.
I think they built that at the end of my road.
What's your flip side?
They only have one.
One between the two of us.
I don't think I gave this one to anybody. That one.
I could see that.
You have that?
I do have that. I could see that. I can see, you can't see it on this side, but it kind of looks towards the river. Gee, you can't see that over there. I see it. This side looks toward, but anyways, I could see that. But I can see that too. You know,
That's
it's, I can look, well, but you look at these, whatever, a depot in the, station. You know, so just looking at that footprint, so something like that, even like, what they're building on Lake George. You know, no, I know their plan is different, but I could see at the right place. Yeah, why not?
So Hudson building a few of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we pass?
You did.
Okay, good.
This is good. This is the intent.
Whose is that?
I think this is Patricia. Patricia, did you get my email?
I did. So I have seen this. I do not see this in River Falls. If I were to find something like this, I would think of it as a college type, not our college, but a college type situation. Is it still me?
Nope, this is Chris now.
That was
Okay.
mine.
I want this one. I want this.
I mean,
I know where I would put it.
I do too. I like the color. Orange is my favorite color. I think the architecture is generic as hell. I mean, you could vomit that onto any thoroughfare anywhere in the United States. So the architecture is kind of boring as hell. But I think something like that would be fine on like the north end of the Dick's parking lot where that ratty old strip center is with the little workout thing and the Chinese restaurant right there and the gold, what is it? Copper bucket or whatever it is right there. Like I could see something like that there, or even some of the strip centers on the north end of Main Street where like the Little Caesars and liquor store, like not that I don't have a problem with the businesses there, but those buildings could certainly be something better and this would be fine there. And I'm Chris Holkamp, by the way.
Chris, I intentionally gave you this one because I was hoping for that kind of answer, so. Choosy, perfect. So I think, that was helpful for us to just, icebreaker, we're talking land use. So when we're thinking about future land use, we're thinking about what do we want development to look like? What is that guidance going to be? So kind of help us get into that headspace a little bit as we have the conversation tonight. But it also leads us into kind of an update on engagement because we're starting to think about some pop-up events and starting to ask the public to go through somewhat of a similar exercise, not quite in the same way, but more of a visual preference of here are some examples of what development has been or could look like. What do you like? Where can it be located in the community and things as we're really looking to set our course for what that future land use plan starts to look like. And we'll talk a little bit more on the technical side of things at the end of the meeting here, but wanted to jump into just kind of a quick update on engagement overall. And so there's a few things in here that have been kind of a long time coming with a few things, but way back to Earth Day. We had a couple of pop-up events that were associated with some community events, so staff was great and attended those events and had some community conversations. We connected with the students and had a pop-up at the university, engaged with some people there. So we've been doing a little bit of that here and there where it's, again, that pop-up event is our opportunity to set up in the community where people are already out and about, spend quick 5-10 minutes or whatever they're willing to spend with us there. So just getting having some good conversations there as well. But we are also planning and looking ahead to some upcoming pop-up events. Right now, we're targeting the Tuesday farmers market or Thursday farmers market at the brewery, or maybe the food truck at the brewery on a Friday as a way to hit a couple of different audiences, again, where people are out in the community. So just working on coordinating. So if anybody has any connections at the brewery particularly, let me know, because we're having trouble getting them to return our phone calls. So
Are you talking the brewery or the distillery? The Tattersalls or a brewery?
we're talking the brewery.
Rush River?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got someone who works out at Rush River.
Okay, sure.
Right.
Can you just send me there? Or, you know,
Sure.
we can connect, yeah.
Right.
And our thought there is to really focus in on land use. So thinking back to that early engagement, where we heard lots of things that we've got great parks and rec, and we've got great natural resources, and resilience is important to us. Those things we kind of understand from a consensus generally where we're headed with things, but hearing a lot of different things from like a housing and economic development and land use side of where should we be investing? And what do we do with downtown? What does density look like? In Diane's examples of those two different forms of housing, do we want to develop at all? Some of those questions. So using those pop-up events to get some more specific feedback on what people would like to see. And so that's where, for those of us that are planners, this is an easy conversation to talk density and those things, but trying to make it a little bit easier in terms of looking at some pictures and having conversations to see what people like, don't like, as we're moving forward in this conversation. And then we also have some upcoming stakeholder conversations, which I will talk about here in the next slide. But we also have some new stuff happening on Engage RF. If you guys have seen the emails, hopefully are all a part of it by now. But there's been some updates with some timeline information and just some access to new information on Engage RF in general, but there are also a couple of new activities that I was going to pull up. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button. So from our comp plan page, we have some ideas that are out here that were really stemmed from kind of the key themes conversations that we had at our last meeting. So thinking about, incorporating resiliency and sustainability, or celebrating our cultural resources, developing a diverse housing stock. So we've got some ideas that we had posted out there, and we were asking people to comment on them. What are their thoughts, ideas, or they have the opportunity to like. So if you guys haven't gotten out and taken a look at that, or direct people, just looking to get some feedback and engage people on kind of direction that we're headed in a couple ways. There is also a activity on the bike and pedestrian plan. This is a mapping exercise where we're asking people to come in and let us know where they have concerns, opportunities for improvement, things like that. So they can come in here and drop a pin, and then let us know, provide some comment in detail. So getting some, there's more activity on the bike ped, this activity than the other one, but wanted to, we'll keep these open for a little while still, but wanted to make you all aware that was out there, and we'll continue to have active activities like this as well. So any questions or comments on just these Engage RF activities or anything to that accord? we're gonna continue to use the newsletters, and promote things on social media and things like that. So keep driving participation there. Then we'll jump back to our presentation, and talk about our stakeholder conversation. So this is, a point in the process that when we had put our process together, where we want to have a deeper dive into some specific topical conversations to help us direct the analysis that we're doing as part of this planning process. And we weren't sure what these topical areas were, or who, exactly how we were going to get people together as we started this, but we really went back to the early engagement that we received and laid out a few topics where these are intended to be topical experts in the community, where we're getting them together in a room and having specific conversations about housing, about recreation, our local businesses. What are the issues, confirming some of the issues and opportunities that we heard from the public. And then also just having a conversation about what some of the solutions or directions, what should that be? And the intent here is that we're really bringing in some diverse opinions, but also, again, those topical experts. So it allows us to kind of maybe confirm or just check, some of the things we're hearing from those that are in the specific industries or living some of this on a regular basis, whether as part of their job or on a volunteer basis. And so we've identified 6 groups that will be getting together to talk about housing, kind of economic development with our local business climate, getting together our large tract property owners, talking about recreation, resilience and natural resources, and then our cultural resources or sense of place. What is the image of River Falls? And that's kind of a big bucketed one in terms of when we think cultural resources, it's not just our history, but the ability, who we are as a culture, who we are as people, and kind of that sense of place again, or image. So that's a pretty big group that we've identified there. But kind of going back again, when I, started, again, the things that we resoundingly heard through public engagement that really kind of confirmed for us is how important recreation is, our natural resources, and that resilience and sustainability. So wanting to make sure we had conversations there. But then there were a lot of questions or concerns in like housing, for example, related to affordability and accessibility. So having some deeper conversations, same things with businesses. Where are we going? What are the opportunities? What's worked well? What hoops did they have to jump through that we could tackle, and some of those things. But the format for these conversations will be that we'll have an invited group where we will facilitate a meeting with this invited group, but these meetings will be open to the public. So they will be advertised, staff will be in attendance, but they will be facilitated by the consultant team. And so we're figuring out the details on, the public can come just like they do here at these meetings, but how they can engage in the process too. We're working through that with staff as well. So maybe before I open it up to any questions, did I miss anything, Amy? Okay. Any questions, comments, thoughts on these stakeholder conversations?
Stephanie, this is Patricia. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go.
I'll let you call on whoever you want to call.
Go ahead, Patricia.
Okay, so Stephanie, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting the public to it. Under which of these, or if any of them, would renewable energy fall?
That's in the resilience and natural resources.
Okay, thank you.
Do you already have a list of folks? And where did you acquire the list, or how did you come up with the list?
Yeah, so we started very early on assembling a list of stakeholders back at our original kickoff meeting. So we've been working with staff to develop a list of stakeholders. We're still confirming where they all belong a little bit in each of these, but I don't know if you have more.
Yeah, I'll just add in, staff started to compile, and then we did work through administration, and we did send it to city council as well, so they could review and provide their input. So we think we've got a fairly comprehensive list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how this breaks out at this point is, I think one group has up to 35 people. We know that not everyone is going to attend the meeting, but I think the smallest is maybe like 14 or 16 individuals. So we did include, you know, from like recreation, for example, we've got baseball, soccer, basketball organizations all covered. So that's a pretty large group. We've got some of our faith-based organizations and things like that in our cultural resources and sense of place. That's a big topic. So that's the one where we have the biggest bucket of attendees or invitees currently identified. So, yeah, but, and thankfully we've got a good, you know, email and phone list. We will be sending mail to the large tract property owners, as that's the best form of communication that we have for them. So, any other comments or questions on these? Excellent. Oops.
Oh, can you remind me what the time frame is for these conversations?
Yeah, we're hoping to have these conversations all happen before the July 13th council workshop so that we can update the council on what we're hearing. That obviously is coming sooner than later. So
Good luck.
yeah, trying to work it all out. So I think, you know, generally there's some things that are going to come up from an engagement side. We're also, and I should have pulled up the email, the bike and pedestrian plan is, that group is planning their walking and biking tour. And I know Sam sent an email and
Walking tour on the 23rd at 5:30, I think. And the biking tour July 9th at 1 p.m.
there you go.
The things that stick in my head.
Yeah.
And the things that don't.
So that is exciting. And then we're also looking to hold some pop-up events specific to the outdoor recreation plan. So we're looking at a fighting fish game, potentially the same night as the workshop. It's a Wednesday. Workshop gets done at
6:15.
6:15. Yeah, and the game doesn't start until 7:30. So hit a couple things while we're in town. And then also looking at an event later in the fall. So just a few things to keep y'all in the loop on when we're going to be out and about and things like that. So then that moves us to kind of the discussion of key themes and goals. And so this is just a little bit of a reminder for you. The last time we met, we were really thinking about the engagement that we had gathered and what were those topical areas that came out of there, kind of identifying those as our key themes with the understanding that those key themes transition to goals. And so really that's what we have been working on. We worked with staff on things here. I'm just gonna close that as I keep wrong thing. But also wanted to, you know, do a quick pause and remind us what our current plan, that structure that you've been working off of in terms of the goals that really start with some that, you know, you don't see goals as a word here, but your themes are really some those goal ideas of what you wanted to be working on. And then there's guiding policies and implementing policies that really set the vision for where you wanted to be going with those themes, and then the standards associated with that, just as a reminder of the framework that you are working with. And then we have put a goal structure together for the plan update. So we worked with staff to really what makes sense here. And there's a lot of ways that goals can be structured within a comprehensive plan. You could have, you know, an overarching vision statement, and then you can have, you know, goals for each plan element, which, a reminder, there's 9 plan elements. That could be a lot of goals. There's lots of different ways that you can do this. So we came up with a structure that really uses kind of 3 buckets here, starting with goals, and then our priorities, and then our implementation actions. And so starting with that goal, the kind of goal framework being that root piece, we are looking at statements that identify overall direction and desired outcomes, but that are overall encompassing for the entire plan. So we're just going to have comprehensive plan goals that hit on specific topical areas, but that are going to be overarching. So you're not going to have specific housing goals. You're not going to have specific transportation goals. You're going to have a set of overarching goals. And these are meant to inform where we should make investments. What are the primary focus areas where we want to be spending our time? What do we want to be looking at? Then from there, we will have priorities that become specific to each plan element. So there we can get some more specific direction about where we want to be going. What are our priorities for housing? What are our priorities for transportation, for natural resources? And so these are intended to be in a similar vein to our themes, where they're, a quick phrase with some text to support it. But what are the top issues? What are those top priorities that we want to be focusing on? And then we will have specific implementation actions for each plan element that work into a full implementation plan, so that we have some actions that we're trying to achieve, that we're making action on to achieve those goals that we set for the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and beyond. So that was kind of a quick overview of the structure, but any initial thoughts, reactions to that structure? Does it make sense? Chris, you're quiet and it's making me nervous because I can't see you.
He's sound asleep.
I put him to sleep.
No, I'm here. I'm good. I love it. I think it's great.
Okay.
I love these specific actions and directions. The having details is important in these kinds of things.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So one thing I also wanted to hit on as we were going through this goal structure and kind of setting that framework was looking at what our plan elements are, again, required by state statute, right? We've got those 9 required elements. Issues, opportunities, implementation are kind of their own thing. So we've got those 7 typical areas. And I think even back to our first meeting, we talked about, where does recreation fall in here? It doesn't have its own space. Which one does it fall into? But in our early conversations with the public, that importance of recreation was so emphasized throughout a lot of what we heard. And so with staff, we talked about, rather than putting it in natural resources or with community facilities, giving recreation its own space within the comprehensive plan, so it becomes another plan element. There's nothing to say we could have 25 plan elements if we wanted to. So there's nothing that keeps us from doing that. But the other great part that this does is, of course, we have the outdoor recreation plan that's getting done along with this. So it's our opportunity. We don't have to do a ton of new work for this to be a plan element. It just kind of allows those plans to come together even more, and making sure that recreation is considered as part of our system-wide approach when we're thinking about all of these other plan elements as well. So that hit that one, okay? Got your discussion, okay. So we did update our outdoor rec steering committee as well with this, update as well. So just a, quick update for you. If we had more time, we could, I thought we would chat a little bit more about goals, but I know you guys have had a long day already, and we've got some draft goals that have been worked through. And so my thought was that we can send those out to you to noodle on and think about. We need to make sure, obviously making sure that we're not emailing everyone about those things. Keep your open records laws and, things, and we'll figure that piece out. But more to come on that for you guys, but didn't want to, it can be a pretty long conversation as we start to get into these. So I didn't want to overwhelm you tonight as well. I think, and I need to count at the number. We ended up with 12 overarching goals. And so if you think about the fact that we now have 8 topical plan elements, so there again isn't a housing specific goal, but as you're looking through the goals, you can really see that there's one that speaks directly to housing. The other piece that we were really trying to do is thinking about, yes, there may be one that leans towards housing, but it also connects to our land use plan element and our economic development plan element, that reinforcing this connected system. So we have kind of a matrix that's laid out that kind of checks which one, how each goal connects to the different plan elements as well. So any thoughts, comments, questions generally on goals? We can keep going. Okay. So then that gets us into the land use planning. We're now starting to roll up our sleeves into the nerdy planning part of this process. And so, you know, I think this is probably maybe some repetitive information from all of you, but we have been working on kind of what is the framework for, what do we want the framework to be for the land use chapter, specifically as we're looking at that future land use map, knowing that that's the thing that gets used on a frequent basis, right? As you guys are making zoning decisions and things like that moving forward. So obviously, I think you guys know and understand how this works, but we're starting here with land use, which is again, how the land is used. What's there today? Land use doesn't consider what it looks like necessarily. It's more of what is that use and where is it located in relationships to other things, which of course is used to inform zoning, which allows us to get into those development standards, more specific on, you know, what goes where, what it looks like, things like that. And then that translates then, you know, into the development review down the road. Once it's zoned, somebody wants to build something, then that's what informs kind of that development pattern moving forward. Pretty self-explanatory stuff. But of course, we have the existing future land use plan from your existing plan. You know, and that the intent of what we will be developing as part of comprehensive plan is something in a similar format, in the sense of we need to have a map that's referenceable, that you can go to say, not only for you as a body, as you're making zoning decisions or things like that, but it can also be used as a economic development tool. You know, if somebody comes to the city and says, I want to build a new corporate park business, where can I go? This also helps to provide that direction and things moving forward. So, you know, kind of we're looking to do the same thing as what you have been using in that accord. So we wanted to just spend a quick second talking about land use categories, and really in our approach for thinking about future land use and planning in the land use category. We like to start here because this is our base of understanding what do we have going on and where do we want to go, and then starting to understand, like putting together a draft future land use plan that we can then use in the analysis of the other topical areas. So if we're thinking about growth in X, Y, and Z locations, then what does that mean for our transportation system? What does that mean for our utilities? Have we put growth somewhere that we can't, that's going to cause a huge traffic problem? Or from a natural resources perspective, whoops, we've done something in an area that, you know, we're going to disturb a bunch of stuff that we didn't want to disturb. That allows us to have a system-wide approach. So we do land use, we look at all of our other analyses, and then we come back and make sure and solidify that land use plan is really our kind of system-based approach. But to start that out, we need to understand what are the categories, what are the different groupings of different land uses that we are going to use in this plan, and then looking at what are our existing uses, where are some key development areas for us, and then putting together that future land use plan. So wanted to just hit first on the categories that you have in your current plan. Just as a baseline understanding, again, you are all aware of what's in there, but starting with our residential categories, there are quite a few in your existing comprehensive plan. There's a nice breakout by different densities and things like that, but just again, recognizing that we've got everything from very low infill at 1 unit per acre, which could easily be Diane's first example, maybe those are bigger than an acre, but to a high density that would allow 8 to 12 units per acre. So right now, the current comprehensive plan maxes us out at 12 units per acre. And then we've got, so that covers our residential. Then we have our more business and other service related categories. So we of course have our commercial categories, which there are a few there with neighborhood, Main Street, community commercial and regional commercial, our industrial categories with our business park industrial and office park, and then our other categories, which hit on more of our governmental uses or parks. We've got our parks, our conservancy, and public and institutional, which is again, our schools, our government buildings, things of that nature. So as we were looking at those existing categories, we like to look at this with a little bit of a fresh slate and take the opportunity to understand what's working well, how does this align with your current zoning ordinance and things moving forward. We also don't want to create a future land use plan that's going to totally defunct your zoning ordinance, and you're gonna have to go through this huge effort if you don't need to, right? And so we've been using those same kind of 4 buckets of different uses, but really looking to simplify the number of land use categories that we have in some ways as a way to provide potentially a little bit more flexibility. I think the thing to remember here is that one land use category can be associated with multiple zoning districts. They don't have to be a 1-for-1. And that is the one area where it does give us a little bit more flexibility in terms of what development can end up looking like, because your medium density category may align with your R2, your R3, and that way you could get a little mixed in a new growth area or something like that. So at a high level, we've been working with staff to kind of confirm the density areas that we're looking at and what the definitions are of these different categories, but wanted to kind of chat about them at a higher level with you. But so from a residential standpoint, we're looking at just a low, medium, and high densities. So our low takes us from 0 units per acre to a benchmark. Medium is there in the middle, and then our high being that piece at the end. From a density standpoint, again, ranging from your low could be your single family, your duplexes. Your medium density could include, some single family on some smaller lots, but it gets you into some smaller apartments and, townhomes, things like that. And then your higher density is where you get into some of your bigger multifamily type development. So there's a lot of similarities to the current comprehensive plan. We're just grouping a couple of things together into 3 categories. Then from a commercial standpoint, there were 4 categories in the current plan that we really kind of grouped into one overall commercial category in general. But a land use plan is also our opportunity to emphasize some opportunity areas. And so we are currently looking at a downtown mixed use category that really aligns with, already what you kind of have going on in some ways across zoning or the current future land use plan, but really emphasizing that downtown and that mixed use component. And then also a university mixed use category that combines not only campus proper, but the areas around it potentially. And so we had a big discussion today about where does that downtown mixed use go and how does that relate to the university mixed use? And so there's more to come on that. I think we will have some potential transitions in there, but the intent is to really focus on kind of that area of town in terms of that mixed use opportunity. And mixed use can include vertical, which is where you have, for example, a commercial business in the bottom and residential up top, but can also be horizontal, where you may have a office building, a apartment, and then a commercial where it's in separate buildings or, things like that. So it can be both of those from a mixed use standpoint. corporate park, we put in both the kind of straddles the line of commercial and industrial, as it can kind of fit in a couple of different ways, but recognizing the success that we've had in that corporate park space as a community, wanting to make sure that that was emphasized as a specific land use category. And then of course, our industrial getting grouped into one, you know, your warehousing, your bigger uses into one category. And then really no change in the other categories in terms of park, open space, and public and institutional. Those are pretty standard components there. And so really, I'll say just one more thing before I stop and pause for questions. These are the categories that we're really looking at for our core areas of where we've got development now. We're kind of those key growth areas. We'll also be looking at what our ETJ areas and how we want to manage that as well. That's another discussion that we're having with staff. So more to come in that area, but working on exactly what that looks like to make sure that we're thinking about and providing enough guidance for those growth areas, but also doing it in a way that provides you flexibility, because those areas might not come into play for a while, but they could come into play, you know, sooner than later. And so just what is that right balance of preparedness there? So maybe I'll pause and see if Amy, Emily, or Mitch has, if I missed anything in kind of this overview of land use categories. Okay. Any questions?
Easy, quick one.
Yeah.
You narrowed it down to 3 residential.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, what was it, trailer parks were in the previous one, and TID and whatever. So why do we have so many? Versus why don't we just have 3? I mean, did they get added on over the years when?
In the old plan?
Yeah, I mean, why are there so many versus just 3?
Not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was probably just the thought of the, you know, people drafting the last plan.
Yeah, so what
To be a
what
little more
fits
specific.
most,
Yeah.
fit best.
Okay.
And although with this, I could see, you know, you could have like a couple, you know, are these going to replace the current? Okay,
Yes.
good, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because right now there's several that could be like medium density, and there's several, like there are different ways of
Yes.
describing it. So having like a more generic definition would be useful.
Yes, yeah. And so we're really trying to think about kind of the form and use and what those descriptions are, and then, you know, having where we need to that density requirement, and how, because that's really what's going to differentiate our residential categories of what goes where, and, you know, the land use planning exercise as a whole is meant to protect the health and zoning, protect health, safety, and welfare of, so not only are we, you know, setting what future land use we'd like to see somewhere, but we're also protecting the investments you've made when your neighbor wants to develop something, you know, in terms of cohesive development and things like that too. So.
And I like the way you're doing it to make it fluid for things to move from one area to another, and it's all acceptable.
Excellent. Okay, anything from our virtual guests?
Chris?
Not from me. You're doing a really good job of explaining things. So until we start like actually putting it together, I might have more questions. But right now, I'm getting what you're saying.
Perfect.
I'm still awake. I'm still good.
So
I'm not shy. Y'all will hear me when I'm ready.
Yeah. In terms of kind of our process moving forward, we had a really good discussion and kind of confirmed some things with staff today. So where we are moving forward is confirming what these categories, this draft definition. That's something that we're going to want to bounce off of all of you moving forward as well. This also helps us solidify as we're looking at those pop-up events and our stakeholder conversations of how we're talking about development. We can start familiarizing people with these buckets and groups of how these things work together as well. And then we are starting to lay out how things might start to look from a future land use planning perspective. And that is really the next time that we get together with you. We want to be having a draft future land use plan that we can start to have a conversation about, does this make sense? Things like that. So more to come with that, but thought it was helpful for you guys to understand the building blocks that we're putting together here related to land use.
One question, in terms of the future land use, so the intention is that y'all are going to work with city staff to draw that. We're not going to be involved until like we have a draft map to look at and discuss. Is that the way this is going?
Yes, but it might not be that there's one map. It might be that we've got a couple of scenarios that we're looking at, but we find that it's better for us to have something for you all to react to rather than us trying to draw collectively as a group what that future land use plan looks like.
That's the best part, when you give us all maps and crayons. I love doing that part of it. It's so much fun.
Sleep, Chris.
I want to
Well,
play. Can I come play and draw maps with y'all when you do it?
Sure.
Awesome.
You're welcome. But that's the part that we wanted to pause with you all. And, Amy sent out the email yesterday, and, here is an opportunity we want to know from all of your perspective and the time that you've spent on the Plan Commission of understanding when we're thinking about, so the future land use plan is our opportunity to either maintain the uses that are there today. Do we like what it is? We want to see this continue into the future. Or is it something that, this is okay, but if somebody wanted to reinvest in the property, we'd really like it to see it move to something else. Again, remembering that we can identify a different future land use in the comprehensive plan, and it could never change. It only has to change if the property owner wants to do something with it. So there's that redevelopment component. Where are some areas that we would like to see a use change if we had that opportunity? But then also, where are those growth areas? Where is the next, investment going to come in, and making sure that we've got future land uses identified to serve that policy guidance for when a developer comes in and asks you all for a zone change. You've got the information there from that standpoint. So that was really where we were hoping to spend a little time with you here, and understanding you've had a long day. And so we can chat quick, but also we sent along that PDF. If you have some thoughts that you want to send our way, and just make sure you send them directly to Amy or Emily or myself, so that we don't get into email issues. But that's really where we wanted to spend some time and just do a little activity here together. And so kind of thinking back to that activity, we are really wondering, what are some of the areas in the community, whether they're development that's been there for forever or it's new development, that you think are really great examples? What do you want to see more of? Also, what are some of the existing development areas that really could use a little TLC? They could use some new investment. We'd like to see some change happen there. And then also, what are some, areas that are a prime area for new growth? Where would you really like to see us moving from, from a development perspective? Those two pieces, the kind of the redevelopment and new growth, are also important for us when we're thinking about both the housing components and economic development components as well. Again, this is a systems approach, so we're not going to, necessarily identify where those priority areas on the future land use plan, but we can make sure that there's some tools and resources in place in some of those other plan elements to help spur development where we'd like to see it and things like that. So, I think, from that standpoint, we've got a couple of maps up here, but maybe just open the floor, and I can pull up.
I'm talking about redevelopment areas. Amy, didn't a year or two ago, didn't we put something together? So I'm thinking about around the university area then. Didn't we put something together where we picked different, 5 or 6 different areas where we tried to talk about redevelopment and talking with developers and stuff like that.
Yeah, the campus corridor study.
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
We're redeveloping some different stuff now. Would that be, would we take part of that into here or you're already on that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that,
Because, yeah, that's one of the areas I think about redevelopment and then, you know, the obvious areas.
for sure. Yeah, and I think that campus corridor plan was, something that kind of aligns with potentially with the university mixed use building from that and what are those opportunity areas allowing for that flexibility, but that's a great point. Where else? Maybe start with a question of what, and I go around robin too, but where is one area in town that if that's like a shining star of an example development for you? Where's something that you'd really like? You like, a certain housing style or development or
Collinswood,
Collinswood?
the one level.
Which ones?
That's the one level off of Powell Avenue and Winter Street.
Oh, okay.
Old man Collins Field, I can't think of what his name was, but
Twin home complex.
thank you.
Oh, the over 55?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's all the one level and,
Yeah.
3 different sizes.
Okay.
I mean, there's a waiting list if you're lucky enough to know
Yeah.
somebody that's leaving there to get there. And I know they're only one level. I know, we just don't see a lot of that any longer.
That's the deal.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's the square footage thing and the footprint, so Collinswood is, I love that. And you can't,
My question, I like having the,
know that
I
thing,
like having the mix.
but it's just the idea that you're having that type of a little
Single,
group.
multi, stuff like that. I like having the good mixed housing in the developments.
Yeah, I love the east and west sides. They have different personalities, but they're just, some of the neighborhood, but like where I live, just has this great mix of houses from different, from different eras, different styles. It's not all cookie cutter, and I like that. Also smaller, less sidewalks, a variety of ages in the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That kind of, pardon?
Do you have back alleys?
Most do. I personally don't, but most do back alley. So, it's like, it's very connected in a way that I think the new developments aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Sterling, like they've got their own culture, like all the kids and whatever. Certainly neighborhoods can develop, but like just the variety of housing in some of the older parts of town, I value.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think Sterling Ponds is a good example of mixed. See out there in that, yeah.
But then they don't have. Get to groceries,
Yeah, they are,
to get to gas station.
and that's one thing.
And
If
that's what's.
I don't know how we would do it, but prioritizing connecting that part of the city with the rest of the city, because it's just walled off from, because of the highway. It's, I don't know, I see that as a problem.
The first part was making sure we made that connection from them over you down to the front, down to Paul or Paulson. To make sure they can get all the way safely around there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's other things we need to do.
That is an area we've spent a lot of time talking with staff as, as we're thinking about development, that resiliency component of being connected, utility resiliency, connected transportation infrastructure and some of those things. How about you, Patricia? What's your?
Yeah, I was wondering if my hand raised was gonna be, I thought I'll be polite, I'll raise my hand. I think that the Downtown Development Committee that makes sure that downtown is a cohesive, awnings are looking good, paint colors, the storefronts look good. I think they have just done a fabulous job of dressing up downtown River Falls, and it doesn't, when you go through, even when there's an empty space, it doesn't look, I think where the old bakery, I kind of wish they would do something, someone would move all that old furniture out of the front of it. But other than that, I think the downtown development people have done a really good job.
The big board,
Good for the bid, yeah, business.
business improvement district.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of tell what you guys are saying, but the building I'm specifically talking about used to be where Jensen's Bakery is. It's next to the swinging bridge. And it
Yeah.
still has the old table and everything in there, but it's closed but it's one out of, 3 dozen. So no big deal.
But there, Patricia, you hit on a 2-part question. You talked about downtown, but then that's an opportunity for redevelopment, so.
But is
Yeah.
it closed or is he still doing it out the back? He's still doing wholesaling, right?
He still does
Yeah,
wholesale.
so it's not closed, it's just,
Oh, okay, so you can't, okay. It just kind of looks bad, but that's
yeah,
no big deal.
yeah.
And as far as if we're jumping to redevelopment, I'm sorry, I'm not trying, I'm getting
No.
tired, I'm not tracking very well.
Yeah.
But, we have several really deteriorating, in my opinion, strip malls
Yeah.
in town that were like prime sites for redevelopment. I mean, I love what the eye clinic did up on Main Street with like redeveloping, essentially just an industrial propulsion building. It looks great. But, South Main, we've got that little strip mall that never thrived, has never thrived.
Yeah.
Then there's the one with the Verizon store in it too. Redevelopment there would not be amiss.
Okay.
That's a style of retail that never seems to look good. Never seems to be successful anymore either, so.
I second that. I think a lot of the older strip centers along Main should be a focus. I mean, you could put in mixed use, you could do a lot with those properties that would have great visibility, great accessibility, great locations, and there are these just ratty old single-story strip centers that are ugly and should be something better.
I know we talked about it in the South Main Quarter project
Yeah.
a few years ago, but, looking at that particular section and also looking at South Main being a major artery, so trying to get the residential onto State Street, coming to the grocery store on State Street and coming in. I don't know if it still works, but it's, in my head, because I drive it every day, and it is a pretty busy section. And if you do want to get to, the River Hills area, whatever, I think perhaps a lot of the people who live there would definitely get off of South Main and get onto a secondary street for all the schools over there and the housing and the park. I don't know if that fits into it, but it's just, to try and get some of the lessons on the traffic going out that way.
How about anything from a new growth perspective? And I know that's hard. It's, you've got property owners that are, a big piece of what they're willing to do, but, from your perspectives, are there any, areas that are really ripe for opportunity or where you'd really like us to put some focus?
West and north.
Property is available south and east,
Yeah.
just you look at that growth way,
Yeah.
you've got a really nice roundabout, Stemstone, and
Yeah.
just the growth that can go. The roads can handle it, it's kind of like they've already, if you build it, they'll start driving on them. So, because north and west, we end up becoming a Hudson suburb, it's already going that way with the silver property and stuff, so,
Southeast, southeast.
there's just more room before we get to the next community.
Mhm.
And then I think about the thing we did with Reed, where it's around the city.
The ETC.
And how, we've changed and just looking where roads become like
Oh,
29
yeah.
and how that,
Yeah.
what's that called? The big picture thing.
Well,
The southern bypass.
yeah,
So that kind of, in my head, I'm thinking, that was the south part and coming out the Prescott part and how, where would a new road go to?
Right,
So,
connections.
excuse me.
I think along South Wasson too, on the, I guess, east side, across from like the horse farm and north of the manufactured home park. I mean, there's a lot of land right in there. I don't know, maybe it's low and gets drainage issues, but it seems like there's a lot of land there that has potential to have some development going in there that would be relatively close to the university, good access to Highway 65. Seems like a good area to focus in development.
There's a quick trip out there now.
Exactly. I'm booking it by quick trips now. I got one to my west, one to my east. I never have to leave my neighborhood ever anymore.
Mitch and I were driving around while you guys started your meeting and we were talking about, there's like the number of quick trips that you hit new benchmarks. Every time you get a new quick trip.
We used to do that with stoplights.
Yeah.
We had two, we're like, wow, we're really cooking with gas now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people in Ellsworth are very jealous of us, I'll tell you that.
Excellent. Well, I think, that's, if you guys have any other thoughts or ideas, or you're driving around and think of something, please feel free to reach out as we're kind of moving through these next steps. But again, this is helpful for us as we're planning kind of this next round of public engagement as well, and trying to have, clear map for people to identify locations and things like that moving forward. So the last piece, and then, so we're very quick, we'll let you guys go on to your evening, but just giving you guys a quick update on where we're at with the other planning processes. We kind of hit on the walking tour and biking tour for the bike and pedestrian plan. So those are coming up, and then they're in the plan analysis, process. They've worked through their goals and some of those things from that standpoint. And then the outdoor recreation plan, we'll be meeting again with them next week. We did have a virtual meeting while I was homesick, but getting and collaborating with them a little bit more next week, talking about their goals as well. We're having a discussion on our inventory tomorrow with some staff, and then really getting into the bulk of the needs analysis. We've got things started there, but moving forward with that component as well. And then, of course, as I mentioned, looking at kind of the pop-up events for specific to the outdoor recreation plan as well. And then I think, just what happens next and where we headed, we're deep in that, again, plan analysis phase of things. It's the, I call it the nerdy planning part, but it's the part where we get the markers out and draw, as Chris was alluding to. And then, from here, as we're starting to identify what are those solutions, and really that future land use plan is a solution for us. It's that tool for us moving forward. So once we're working through this analysis, we'll then get into that implementation actions piece. If you think back to that goal structure we talked about at the beginning. So we leave that part to kind of the end of this process because now we know what our solutions are, what are those actions that we need to be taking. And then that kind of allows us to do that cyclical process of making sure that our goals still make sense. Now that we've done the analysis and have that direction moving forward, do those goals still make sense for us? Do we need to make any tweaks before we finalize the plan moving forward? So, and I think that's all I had for you. So appreciate you guys holding strong with us.
No, pretty quick. You've been here all day too. Appreciate that.
Did you have any more for saying?
No, I just wanted to thank our city staff and the consultant team. They did a great refresh on today's draft, so if you haven't been out there to take a look at it, please do so. There's a bunch more information out there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tal.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night.
You too.